Hey everybody, this is John the Other, obviously. And according to the April 2nd article at the Times of London, the London Metropolitan Police have abandoned their long-standing policy of automatically believing the victim in claims made to the police of sexual assault. And in the words of Police Commissioner Cressida Dick, quote, "Officers must enter investigations with an open mind." The article begins as follows. It says, Britain's biggest police force has abandoned its policy of automatically believing victims after a series of flawed inquiries into alleged sex crimes the Times can reveal. The article, written by Fiona Hamilton and edited by Rachel Sylvester, does not use the language falsely alleged sex crimes, although that omission is not in the slightest bit surprising. It is nonetheless a failure of the article. Cressida Dick, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, said she has told officers they must have an open mind when an allegation is made, and that their role was to investigate, not blindly believe. Now you might ask yourself at this point, what kind of police force can have a policy of automatic and blind belief in the veracity of a complaint? And you might also think, that's no kind of police force, at least nothing a modern Western nation would call a police force. Rather, a policy of blind belief in complaints made by one class of people against another class means that whatever you call your organization, they are not police officers in any conventional sense. They are palace guards. And it is not a small change to go from being palace guards to being an actual police force that does investigation and other police work. That is a fundamental change in the nature and the purpose of your enterprise. So, are we ready to believe that something as significant as this, quote, policy change can be effected with a, quote, policy change? Because whether this change in policy is real, or whether it's only public relations spin doctoring, we are starting from the position that the Metropolitan Police in London are not a police force, but are, as I said, palace guards. And what I mean by this is that rather than a complaint which is made to the police being the basis for an investigation into an alleged offense, complaints of sexual assault are interpreted as a royal command. Guards, take him away. And this sorry state of affairs has been the case for long enough that among people who have a real respect for the rule of law and for police officers doing the job of performing actual police work, a level of scorn for the police as palace guards is becoming increasingly normal. It may also be that a police force cannot simply switch policy on something as fundamental as presumption of innocence without telegraphing to the public an institutional contempt for that principle. It's a bit more important than just your operating policy for the last current tax year, even when the switch in policy is to return to something resembling respect for the legal principle of presumed innocence. The announcement of this policy change comes in the same week, of course, as the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, Alison Saunders, is announced to be departing from her post. Saunders' departure noted in the Telegraph with an article beginning with, "Guilty until proven innocent, the tenure of Alison Saunders at the Crown Prosecution Service will be remembered for a monstrous inversion of that fundamental principle of British justice." Link to that in the low bar. Saunders has been widely reviled as she has presided over a long string of scandals consistently pursuing splashy and damaging prosecutions, investigations, and convictions of innocent men, which in case after case turned out to be unjustified excesses by the prosecution service. The Sun published that Crown Prosecution Service boss Alison Saunders managed to plumb new depths of incompetence on almost a weekly basis. Link to that in the low bar. A former Tory MP, Harvey Proctor, who was wrongly accused of raping and murdering young boys, himself pointed out that Saunders has, quote, dragged the CPS and her office into total disrepute and done untold damage to this country's once reputable criminal justice system, and this country being, of course, the UK, not Canada, where I am. So maybe what we're seeing is actually a change in the direction of sanity, at least in the UK. Which makes it all the more peculiar that in Canada, a country whose criminal justice system closely copies that of the UK, we are still accelerating down the same path which proved so disastrous. In Canada, we are told to believe the complainant, and I'm probably committing a thought crime by using the word complainant. The preferred rhetoric is believe the victim. But in Canada, piece by piece, our legislators are passing laws which remove an accused person's ability to defend themselves, add additional funding for legal representation of a complainant, give the complainant standing before the bar so that an accused person must contend not with just the unlimited power of the Crown, but a second adversarial lawyer as well, fund the complainant, even as the financial resources of our courts are taxed to the point of breaking, require an accused person to disclose their evidence in advance of a trial, allowing an accuser to modify their story to bypass whatever defense that evidence that accuser might have. And on it goes. A cynical commentator might come to the conclusion that our courts and our parliament are run entirely by maniac ideologues for whom the concept of justice means only that women must never be questioned and that all sexual contact between men and women is presumptively criminal, where she is always the victim and he is always the predator. As a country, we have not yet seen the total collapse of our federal or provincial prosecution service into an international embarrassment, but we are clearly on that exact same path, and it does not require a fortune teller to predict what is being currently demonstrated in the news publications of the nation our system is modeled on. Can it be that our elected leaders simply do not read the news and they operate in a purely idealistic bubble, free from any influence beyond a carefully filtered chorus of praise for their own stupidity? And how much worse does it have to get before everybody wakes up? Do we actually need to wait until we are divided into actual and literal physically armed camps of discrete identity groups before we begin to correct this in Canada? I certainly hope not, because that will be too late. Some people think it's too late already. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and as always, have a lovely, lovely day.